Good afternoon, everyone. It's yet another beautiful day in the universe, and we have with us great speakers, great thinkers, great minds, leaders who are going to talk about a subject which should be close to everybody's heart. I'm Anshu Khanna. I'm a columnist, author, and a big supporter of Furu. I have to start by applauding Rachna for what she's doing and always relentlessly getting great minds like we have today to talk about a subject called peace, political peace. So I'll start. We have three speakers today of great repute. I will start with Dr. Debapriya Bhattacharya. He's a macroeconomist and public policy analyst, a distinguished fellow at the Center for Policy Dialogue, Dhaka, where he was its first executive director. He's been a former ambassador and permanent representative of Bangladesh to WTO and UN offices in Geneva and Vienna. President of UNCTAD, Governing Board Special Advisor on LCD to the Secretary General of UNCTAD. Currently, he's a member of the United Nations Committee for Development Policy. He has held a number of short-term visiting positions, including at the UN University Institute of New Technology, Institute of Developing Economics, Tokyo, and the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow. Dr. Bhattacharya has undertaken joint research amongst others with Harvard Business School, University of Manchester, Overseas Development Institute, London, and a large number of research organizations from South Asia. Dr. Bhattacharya is the founding chair of the Southern Voice International Network of Think Tanks, a network of more than 50 think tanks from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Under the auspices of Southern Voice, he led the pioneering multi-country studies on shaping the 2030 agenda, data deficits of SDG monitoring, and early signals of SDG implementation. He conceptualized the project and led the research team for the first Southern Voice report on the state of SDG. I'm really happy to have you here. He chairs the LDC 4 Monitor and Alliance Development Organization, including OECD Development Center and the Commonwealth Secretariat, leading to a number of global studies focused on impact of COVID-19 on LDCs and incentives for graduating LDCs. He has contributed to a number of studies in this area conducted by the WTO, UNESCAP, and the Commonwealth Secretariat. As a civil society analyst, he founded the convener of the Citizens Platform for the SDGs, Bangladesh, network of about 150 development organizations and private sector bodies. At last but not the least, he is the media personality in Bangladesh and a commentator on international media. Welcome to the forum, Dr. Bhattacharya. It's a pleasure to have you here. And it's a pleasure to see how much you've done for the civil society. We also have with us Mr. Abdullah Kamaludeen. He's the founding member and member of the Council of Advocates of Maldives Policy Advocacy Caucus. He has served as a cabinet minister for 15 years in various roles, from Minister of Home Affairs, Ministers of Fisheries, Agriculture and Marine Resources, Human Resources, Employment and Labor, Minister of Public Works and Labor Minister, and Minister of Environment and Construction, to Planning and National Development. Apart from this, he has also served and represented in the leadership positions of various organizations and institutes in the Maldives, such as Maldives Governor of the International Fund for Architecture Development, Executive Director, Maldives National Ship Management Limited, Maldives Electricity Board, Bank of Maldives Limited, etc., to name a few. While serving in the ministerial positions and as a member of various government councils and committees, his contribution to the development of Maldives remains unmatched. At the age of 21 years, he became one of the youngest heads of departments of the government, taking independent charge of the Port Commission and Public Works Department under the President's office, reporting directly to the President of the country. As chairman of Bank of Maldives, he oversaw the full acquisition of the bank by the government of Maldives from its major shareholders. He revived the parliamentary right of introducing private bills, including a bill to abolish the existing restriction on the freedom of expression. Thank you for that. And a bill defining the administrative procedures of parliament aimed at obtaining more autonomy for the parliament. Much needed. First as director and later as Minister of Public Works and Labor, he chaired the Labour Advisory Board, which drafted and implemented the first labour and employment regulation of the country. As a member of the Jamhuri Party, he was part of the team that drove the near successful bid of party leader Honorable Qasim Ibrahim for the presidency of Maldives in 2013. As a result of his of the party became a major coalition partner of the Progressive Party of the Maldives, and who formed the government. As a member of the core team of Mamoon Reform Movement, MRM, which was part of the opposition coalition of four parties. He worked in the forefront of the successful bid of presidential candidate, presidential candidate, my computer's, Honorable Ibrahim Mohammed Soli and running mate, Honorable Faisal Nazim, to become the President and Vice President of Maldives on 17th November 2018. Welcome to the forum, sir. And I'm really should we wait till the third gentleman comes in?
No, we need to start. He will join in later.
Okay, so I introduce him?
Yeah, you can.
So we have also Sabur Shah Dawood Zai, who is the CEO and founder of Afghan Docs, an association of Afghan nationals with international support that intends to create a comprehensive database of Taliban crimes that occurred since August 15, 2021. He is currently living in exile in Poland after the Taliban took over Afghanistan. Previously, he served as the advisor to the Deputy Minister of Interior Affairs in the government of Afghanistan. Mr. Zai has been awarded by Funvik Europe and for his book on peace. He is the recipient of Global Youth Leadership Award 2020, South Asian Leadership Award 2019, and Youth Award for Utan Young Parliament. He is also the CEO of Bin Dawood Foundation, which was established in 2017 as a repository of funds from individuals who wish to contribute to the betterment of people of Afghanistan. He also worked closely with the media team of the Presidential Palace, Afghanistan, for a period of 2 years, wherein he worked unofficially due to security reasons with the National Security Council of Afghanistan till the government collapsed, sadly. As part of the team, he worked to collect first-hand information, press releases, briefing stories, and videos from different provinces to share, broadcast them over the country, global media. Also, they had a huge youth network in Afghanistan, 34 provinces, where they used to collect evidences and work against extremist violent organizations. We have him joining us from Poland in a little while. However, I think we need to first introduce our main convener, Rachna Sharma. Rachna, relentlessly pursuing her vision of world peace, Rachna went for executive education at Harvard Business School in Leadership and Development and continued education from Yale University and Grenoble École de Management on International Relations to understand world politics better. With over 20 years of diverse work experience, Rachna is now actively engaged in the world peace space and has now become a credible voice, whether in her writings or in organizing global and national peace campaigns and events. During her professional career in India's travel and hospitality industry, she was also the recipient of the Leading Women in Hospitality Award in 2012. In 2013, Rachna was also appointed as ambassador for the Pashmina Goat Project of the Himalayan region to further the cause of less privileged shepherds and disappearing Pashmina goats. A short stint in entrepreneurship also led Rachna to win the Women Entrepreneurship Award by Femina India in 2016. Rachna has also co-authored a book, Globalization and Voices from Indian Practitioners, in 2013, and a research note on past, present, and future of peace in 2019. She was also recognized as the LinkedIn's most powerful profiles for the year 2018 in social impact, making her amongst the top 73 profiles of India. The last virtual event hosted under the leadership of Rachna was Politics, an important tool in the world peace process on 20th November 2021. And I welcome you all to this year's World Peace talk. Rachna, I'd start with you.
Sure.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the role Furu can play to bring peace in Sark region, and what advice can it give to world leaders today? So, from the experts.
So Furo wants to be the torchbearer of advocacy, bringing together the organizations, leaders, and shared philosophies, which could help the region in maintaining peace. Now, when I talk about peace, I specifically always talk about positive peace, which is attitudes, institutions, and structures that create and sustain peaceful societies. And as far as my advice to the world leaders, and to begin with the leaders of the Sark, would be to please just keep half a day in a month for thinking, and another half a day for you to just say hello to other leaders, your counterparts in the region. That would solve half the problems. I believe the rest would fall in place automatically.
So this brings me to the very obvious question. Is the Sark region ready for peace? Is it looking for peace?
Yes, I think if not now, then when? We are the people. We understand each other better than anywhere else in the world. That is because of our shared histories, cultures, and to some extent our genes. Now, if we fight with each other, I think it's only us we can also solve problems with each other peacefully. Now, other superpower can help us. With the demographic dividend, Sark can be the next powerhouse. Now, what this region lacks is a structured framework, an institution which could advise the region on conflict resolution or peace treaties. Now, for example, now the United Nations was established to stop world wars. However, local conflict resolution is not the work area for the United Nations. So we need to be mindful about Sark. We need to be mindful about empowering that institution, establishing that institution, or supporting the institutions which are taking initiatives for developing peace in Sark.
Yeah, but that brings me to the other question, which is very important. Who are the people who are willing to talk about political peace right now? Who are these people? Like, can you please list out some?
Political peace, none. Politics is looked upon as something that's very, very powerful, which can damage your life. So people are in a way scared to talk about it. And those who are leaders in politics have no time to think about it because they're busy solving problems they created for themselves. Now, this is the tradition of violence that I am hinting at, that they started, and it's a never-ending vicious cycle. Now, it is also the fault of the people, which is us, who have turned a blind eye to violence. We are a huge region. The Sark is huge. It's billion plus people. If we all constantly participate in peace building, why wouldn't it happen? And where does it begin? It begins by talking, by initiating, by igniting a conversation, a dialogue about political peace peacefully. That's all that I have to say today. I think we should move on.
Thank you. Quite powerful. Now, I'll hand the stage over to you, Rachna, to start chatting with Mr. Kamaludeen. And over to you.
Thank you. So I would say that first and foremost, I am privileged and honored to be able to share the wisdom of Mr. Kamaludeen Abdullah from Maldives with not only myself and people who are watching us today on webinar, on live on social media, but also I think when it will be recorded and will be shared to different people who will know more about Maldives than just going there for a holiday. So my first question to you, sir, is given the Maldives strategic location in the Indian Ocean, the relations of Maldives with India, they have seen various ups and downs owing to the pro-India and pro-China approaches adopted by various elected governments over a period of time in Maldives. Now, how do you think that India-Maldives relations can be insulated from these political leadership changes, given the strong and historic economic and military relations between these two countries?
Thank you, Rachna. Given the times, this is a very important question. First of all, I strongly believe foreign policy should not be susceptible for drastic change so often and so quickly. I believe foreign policy should not be drawn with short-term objectives in mind, especially political objectives and ambitions. It is necessary for a strong foreign policy to reflect long-term strategic goals of and objectives of a nation in alignment with the common interests of its neighbors and other geopolitical partners. Maldives for long has had a very strong foreign policy that was drawn out with the said objectives in mind. And it was continually practiced for decades and on. Such consistency no doubt is the hallmark of good foreign policy. During the height of the Cold War, at a time when the world was highly polarized, we were forerunners in the non-aligned movement. We maintained neutrality and stability in the Indian Ocean. Fast forward to now, the times have changed, but the objectivity should be the same. I believe South Asia region isn't the same as it was decades back. It's not the same in terms of political landscape, demographics, along with a multitude of other factors. It's the fastest growing region in the world and the epicenter in the race for global dominance. It's definitely so much more active than it used to be decades back. And this is true for most of the countries in the region, including Maldives and India. Now, coming back to your question on insulating Maldives-India relations beyond political changes, it is a tough one. It is tough because any healthy relationship is based on understanding and catering to the needs of one another. That being said, political realities are always drawn to cater to the needs of the people. To this extent, Maldives is growing very fast, and expectations of the people are very high to maintain this growth. This, I believe, is the reason why we invited Chinese contractors to Maldives, opening up a Chinese embassy in 2010. Later on, things deteriorated dramatically, and I believe the then opposition took somewhat unfair advantage of the situation at the expense of Maldives-India relations, due to which we saw some very heavy, very unhealthy headlines coming from both sides,
Correct.
which created the impression of India meddling with the domestic affairs of Maldives. I think that impression is very detrimental to Maldives-India relations, especially given our long-standing history and strong ties. Because of this, it's very easy to draw a skeptical image of India. And the current administration does not help this case by not being forthright about its relations with India, which again leaves a lot of room for speculation and skepticism. To insulate Maldives-India relations, both sides must refrain from leveraging this relationship for political reasons. Our relations should be stronger than political changes, and both sides have an important role to play to demonstrate this picture. Both sides must establish and maintain good relations with leaders on all sides of the political spectrum, and both sides must ensure that the relationship is horizontal, not vertical.
I was on mute. So my next question to you, that's very powerful to say that leadership is horizontal, not vertical. And I think that's what we are trying to get to by the end of the conversation. My next question to you would be, sir, that as per various reports, now political instability are rising concerns over the increased radicalization in the Maldives. I mean, that's what you also mentioned, that it did lead to some very bad media reporting from there. So you've served as the Home Minister in the government of Maldives. What is the real scenario if we had to discuss it as of now today?
Evil, I believe, is the absence of good. Similarly, radicalization is there due to absence of something else. Our efforts should be centered on finding out what's amiss here. Political instability and socio-economic uncertainty are amongst obvious factors, but it's so much more than that, I believe. For centuries, we have practiced a very moderate and peaceful version of Islam. We were very homogeneous in terms of religion, politics, and spirituality. Despite that, we are very open to new ideas and welcoming new people. History tells us that we embraced travelers from all over the world, and some of these folks filled very high positions within our government as well. From the perspective, radicalization is a totally alien phenomenon for Maldives and the long history of its people. Maldivians have never been hardline or warring people. Therefore, it's very difficult for me to believe that radicalization can take root in Maldives. Since our soil has never been fertile to aggressive tendencies, I don't see any reason why it should change for worse. But this does not mean radicalization does not pose a challenge to Maldives. It is a challenge, and it is a challenge that has knocked concurrently on our doors along with the sweeping reforms brought in. We opened ourselves to diverse interpretation of religion and politics. While diversity is good, intolerance towards others' view is unacceptable. While free speech is essential, responsible speech is equally important. Radicalization is when intolerance manifests in harming or causing injury to others. I would say this percentage is still relatively small in the Maldives. And with coordinated effort and with calculated measures, getting past it will not be difficult.
Right. Exactly. So free speech and responsible speech, there's a very thin line. And if all of us as leaders of this region understood that, perhaps we wouldn't be where we are today when it comes to Sark. And my next question would be about Sark, which is Maldives is a founding member of Sark, and it was the first country to propose the South Asian Free Trade Agreement, the initiation of informal political consultations in Sark forums, as well as the lobbying for greater action on environmental issues, because obviously Maldives is a coastal, it's an island, and it has all of those issues. Now, every nation has its strengths, rooted in its history. According to you, what are the key strengths of Maldives, and which are the areas of interest that it can lead Sark into?
Well, our key strength is being warm and welcoming and hospitable to aliens who visit our islands. We are keen to embrace people and ideas. Our islands are made up of travelers from all over the world who have settled down for simple yet peaceful serenity of island lifestyle. At the same time, we are very resilient people. We are seafarers. We have history of traveling great oceans. We have maintained nationhood and sovereignty over these islands for over 5,000 years, which is a very long period of time. So for me, hospitality and resilience are our two key traits. This is also the cornerstone of our billion-dollar tourism industry. We proved our resilience to the world by winning the World Top Travel Destination Awards for 2 consecutive years in a row during this current pandemic. When it comes to Sark, Maldives can play an even more important role by being a hospitable, neutral ground for all the national players to ease tension and find common ground through dialogue. I don't think there's any country in the region who can play this important role more effectively than us. The essential role Brussels, The Hague, and Geneva played during the World Wars, mediating and brokering dialogue and opening diplomatic channels to the warring nations of Europe, should not be underestimated. We are naturally gifted to play this role within the region and beyond, and I am of strong belief that it is in the best interest of everyone concerned that Maldives become the safe haven for regional mediation, dialogue, trade, and security.
Right. So my next question would be a little more direct, and that is, you have been a very, we just read your bio. You've been a politician for more than 15, 20 years. And at the end, recently you were in news that you quit your party, and there has been a certain disconnect. And you said that there were certain major national issues which were not sorted. Where has that major disconnect been for you personally in your leadership journey that you've decided to now take on another role? And if you really have decided that, would you like to share that with us?
Well, I have been through. I have served in a lot of political parties recently, but I found that the change that has come over Maldives within this 50 years is not being addressed. I think the most important matter that we have to look at this point of time is the economics of the country. What's the economic model that can be applied to the people, where the difference in income levels and wages, all these things can be sorted out, and everyone individually can have the chance to prosper and also live a decent life. So I think that requires a complete new philosophy, of new philosophy, in the sense that we have to do things that another way. Not We don't have to keep on doing the same thing over and over again to get the same results. So we have to think differently and come up with a different solution to confront the issues that we have now existing issues of livelihoods and life. Really, that is why I chose to take a different path and test those solutions.
So we wish you all the best. I'm sure with your mindset, with your progressive story, and just the way you're open to new ideas and new ideologies and innovations across the world. I'm sure that you will add a lot of value in your next leadership role to Maldives.
Thank you.
And my next question is about, it's being a little selfish. So I would want to know that our company is called Phuro Innovations, and you just spoke about innovations. So what innovative ideas do you have for us? How can we propagate and double our impact in the region and move faster towards world peace?
Well, one of the biggest challenges faced in the world right now is populism and populist leaders surrendering to counterintuitive policies which oftentimes go against the best interest of their nation's peace and security. The role of civil society, think tanks, NGOs, and policy institutes are even more important in this given context, not just to influence decision makers, but to keep citizens informed and aware of matters that are of importance to them. A democracy can only function so long as, to the extent of an informed citizenry. This is the role companies like you should play to unite people across the borders, to falter the lines that divide people, and to pollinate people based on common creed, belief, and value systems. If people of two countries can be resilient in their trade, commerce, art, culture, and history, then there's hardly any political lines that can draw them apart. First step towards this direction is communication and understanding each other through right measures. If you can do it right, then you have made a huge bargain towards regional and world peace.
Right. So communication, exactly. That's exactly what it's as simple as basic. And somebody would say, what would it do? But I believe that it can actually do wonders, because that's one thing that we've not been doing. Perhaps we've been doing a lot of communication, but that has been with a lot of terms and conditions, and it's not really been a communication. It has a lot of, all our communications are like drenched in history, drenched in vengeance. There is no open communication. There is no, I'm yet to see leaders sitting across with an open mind and saying, okay, hello, we have differences, we have a history. How do we erase some of that and be more futuristic? And I think with all of your leaders and your support and your wisdom, we should be able to get all the people together to have at least have one communication, which is open communication. And if you had to give advice to the world leaders, And to the leaders of the Sark region, what would it be?
Make peace, not war. War is costlier, peace is prosperous. Create
Yes.
dialogue, create opportunity, make an effort to understand and stop fanning the fire. We only have one planet, save it. Cost of
Yes.
environment far outweighs the profit made against it. Establish justice and spread love. That's all it takes to create happiness to all on earth. This is
Right.
the best
Peace.
advice. This is the
Correct.
best advice an inhabitant of a small island nation can convey to the world.
Yes, but I think I believe that peace is profitable as well, and that is what positive peace is all about. And if we had to, we really, every answer of yours, you've been talking about shared values. I also spoke about shared values. You did say that resilience and hospitality, right, was perhaps the value of Maldives. What do you think is the shared value? Is it resilience for us as a region? Or you think you would like to give one more words to it today? Where we can find a common ground to connect with each other, right? What is that shared value? Because, I think a lot of institutions, a lot of, universities, all the philosophers across the world, ultimately, no matter how many theories or philosophies they put out together, it ultimately boils down to values at the end of it. If you had to really go micro, it's value. So what would be the biggest, we would want to get like one value from each leader and then perhaps, identify those values as the values of this region. So we can then maybe apply those values in every policy going forward as political leaders of this region.
I think at this point of time, well, we have our common aspect is that we are all South Asians, and we share, some of us share the same history, culture, and there's many things that we like art and things like that, which we have in the past also shared. And but it's the difficulty is that we have somehow not been able to look at ourselves as a region, in the sense that we built Sark, but it's not working. It's the Sark leaders have not met for perhaps about 7 or more years now. And but look at ASEAN, for example. ASEAN, they're managing it quite well. They're just our neighbors. But I think ASEAN headquarters is in Indonesia. And Indonesia, I think, has 2 ambassadors from each country. One for ASEAN and one, the bilateral ambassador, So I think, we have to understand that in order to prosper, all of us has to work together. As I think, as you have said, and as I also have said, we are about 1.9 billion people now, close into 2 billion almost, and we are the next economic powerhouse of the world. We have to understand that. We have to understand that, and we have to build. No man is an island. It's funny, a person coming from an island is saying that no man is an island. But still, we have to work together. You have to work together to achieve common objectives, and that value, I think, is missing. So when we realize that we can progress and prosper through the value of friendship, through the value of kinship, I think we can do a lot of good to ourselves and to the world.
I love it. South Asian, that's the one, that's our first value of us as regional young leaders, as well as the existing political leaders. Because if we don't think of that, I think there's already a lot happening. We are not here to criticize, but I'm just saying that we should also do more to just get more familiar with Sark as a region. We need to know more about what Bangladesh is doing. We need to know more about what's happening in Bhutan, in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives. Perhaps what's happening is that, whenever it comes to specifically the young leaders and the young people of the nation.
I'm not being cynical, but I would like to hear something about Sark on the TV every day. I can only tell you that Sark is working when that happens. When as soon as I open the TV, if I hear something about Sark, then I can tell you very easily. Look, Rachna, Sark is now working. That's not happening. I don't think I have heard anything about Sark for a long, long time on my feed.
We haven't either. We really have to see what they are doing. And it's okay. Sometimes we start things and we fail, but the idea is how soon we get up, how soon we dust ourselves off and say, okay, let's do something else. This has not worked. Perhaps let's introduce another innovation strategy. How do you evolve with time? You just can't be, I established Sark in whatever XYZ year, and then it's not working. Perhaps times have changed. How do we update?
The organization is already there. So you don't have to invent the wheel again. We have to just leaders have to look at why it's not effective, And when we can solve that problem, then I think there's so much to happen, and the results can be so good. That's what I feel.
And we have examples. We have European Union as the biggest example in front of us, how powerful they have been, and that happened. And they have a very bad history like us. If people love history and they want to know about world politics and geopolitics, then they should know that Germany and French, they always wanted to. They were like the worst enemies on this planet. And see what they did, because the economic interdependence, the opening of the borders, boosting tourism. Anyway, that's another discussion altogether. But I'm just saying that they were open to the idea of changing with time. They were open to the idea of leaving behind the baggage, the past, all of that, all of those, they have a gruesome history. But they look at them where they are and look at us where we are. It's not a comparison. We are all one family. We are global people. But I just feel that there is a lot of existing stories that we can learn and be inspired from.
Right, but we also have to look at our own countries.
Exactly.
The amount of poverty. These things have to be looked at, and the state of the people have to be brought up. Unless that happens, there's not going to be any real satisfaction from what we are doing. So the basis of what we need to do, peace and progress, is that the inhabitants of a given country, their state must be lifted up, and we have to find innovative ways of lifting up the state of the people of each country. And then I think that is the basic step.
Yes, poverty, disease, hunger. I think these three are major issues that if we don't solve them, and we will not be able to solve them just again, if we keep spending a lot of our money just on defense, trying to defend just from each other, right? We are spending so much money because we're living in fear of being attacked, or it's a constant fear that is taking a lot of our resources. Rather than
spending,
the salvation, love, compassion, So
spending money and spending money responsibly, these are two different things, So we have to understand that we have to spend money responsibly, with responsibility, fiscal responsibility. So that's where I think that's also a very, very important thing, that whatever spending is done in a responsible way.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Kamaludeen. We will continue this dialogue. We have a year long of engagements and a plan. We would request you to stay back and listen to the wisdom that Mr. Bhattacharya will share with us. And I would also pass on the stage to Anshu. Anshu is going to engage with Mrs. Debapriya Bhattacharya, and because they both are these thinkers from this region, so I would be a listener now, for now.
Yeah. No, Rachna, it'll be nice if you also intervene if you have some questions, because you would have some relevant questions pertaining to peace. But Dr. Bhattacharya, welcome to the
Yes,
forum. It's
definitely.
a pleasure to have you here, and you come from a beautiful country, which scenic and stunning, and also in the news now for progressive development. So, my first question to you is: India and Bangladesh are possibly big trade partners. As an economist, you'll agree that money and trade can lead to peace and development. Yet we are very, very restrictive about opening our borders. Do you think it's important that we open our borders and allow people from both sides to interact with each other and get to know each other's culture, and maybe that will help bond better for the countries?
Well, thank you. Let me first thank Phuro Foundation Innovations for inviting me. I think they are doing a splendid job by talking about, peace and politics and the regional issues. These are all very pertinent as and the issue of political dialogue, the relevance of it as we speak. The world is witnessing the high voltage tension in the Ukraine-Russian border, and the global leaders are trying to find peace through dialogues, not through violent means at this moment. And regarding opening up the border, Bangladesh has opened up border and given 1 million Myanmarese refugee status in our forcibly displaced people in our country. So it is very peculiar that we have opened up the borders on certain circumstances. I myself had taken advantage of open border in 1971 to be a refugee in India during our liberation war. So, our borders do open up for humanitarian reason as and when it is necessary under compulsion, and we have been responsive to that. I will come to the Indo-Bangla relationship a bit later, but let me address the substance of our today's discussion for that matter. I have heard very attentively to Ms. Sharma's initial intervention where she spoke about the positive peace. I was a bit surprised, why didn't she talk about just peace? We are used to the word just peace, not the so-called positive peace. I'm sorry about using the word so-called, because many people put in different types of things over there, and I prefer the term just peace. And Bangladesh went to war.
Just
pardon?
peace.
Just peace.
Just peace.
J-U-S-T.
Just peace.
We went to, because all peace is not just. You can have peace and you may still undermine the rights of the people and create that kind of circumstances. So I contest very friendly.
No, I accept totally, because
the positive peace.
All the research that I've come across so far is Western, and all of them, they use a lot of positive peace. And just peace could be the South Asian research. That's what I'm looking for. See, I am looking for these things which possibly haven't reached a common person, a normal citizen. We don't understand. If you ask anyone what is world peace, they wouldn't understand. They would ask me, what are you trying to do?
They would understand what is just peace, because a hooligan in the locality can impose peace as well by putting everybody back home before the evening, and they can also, that can be a peace as well. A totalitarian states do put in peace, build peace, but that is also not just in the sense that human rights are not being observed over there. So that's why my approach over there is a bit different, because lexicon matters. Although we put in different types of contents in the same lexicon or the same vocabulary. But leaving aside that one, coming back to your more fundamental issue on the as dialogue, political peace, and etc. My great-grandmother, before she passed away, told me, great-grandmother, that, son, look at that, when you are invited by Phuro Innovations, don't make that more than 3 points. They're not going to remember the fourth one you are going to say. So let me make my 3 points over here. My grandmother's 3 points. Now, my first point is that, if you don't have just peace within your own country, you cannot have it in cross-border relationship. So before looking outside, please look inside. I think this is the fundamental point. My first one. And if within the country there is no respect for human rights, There is no respect for evidence-based discussion. There is no space for public reasoning. There is no space for pluralism and tolerance to alternative views and dissent. And there is no opportunity to solve social conflicts or political conflicts through peaceful means and in a transparent and accountable fashion. Let us not expect peace across the border when we do over there, because the external policy is an expansion or either vertical or horizontal expansion of your internal policy. The means you use to deal with your own citizens is exactly the means you will be using in dealing with other parties across the border. So if you look at Sark, if it has become dysfunctional, it's one of the reasons is that we have lost democratic quality within our respective countries. And that is my fundamental point in this case. So that will be the issue that to the Sark leaders, look at yourself, don't try to criticize others. And from practical reality, Sark is de facto in comatose, if not dead, because it is the ultimate victim of Indo-Pakistan relationship. If Indo-Pakistan relationship does not get buoyed up through some other different means, then obviously Sark as a structure is de facto done with. And the Islamabad summit is not going to take place even virtually. The second point which comes along is that the framework and how do you go about it in that. And also I will bring in the Sark issue over here. The framework on the basis of which the shared value, the shared principles on the basis of which one should go about is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Universal Declaration of Human Rights Charter provides space and voice to almost all stakeholders in multi-stakeholder approach in multinational, multi-ethnic, multi-religious circumstances. And we should be respectful towards that. And that should be the benchmark on which everything else will be done. If you look at the constitutions of each of our countries, they in principle, at least rhetorically, preaches its allegiance to universal human rights, and we should really live up to our declarations and what our forefathers have promised to deliver. So that should be one of the benchmarks for me, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And United Nations is the right place for that, although we have structural issues in the Security Council and etc. elsewhere. The new power balance has not been reflected in the governance of the United Nations. We are aware of that. Nonetheless, it is at least the best we have at this moment over here. The G20s and others which sprung up here and there doesn't have that universal legitimacy which is there with the United Nations, even after everything said and done. The other benchmark for me is that the new development consensus which we have is the Sustainable Development Goals. The 2030 Agenda of the United Nations, 2015 to 2030, is possibly, which is a good framework for all countries to follow, and also for regional cooperation and regional development, with the commitment that no one will be left behind. If we apply that particular framework, then I would say no country will be left behind in the region. Not only no one, but no country should be left behind. So I would think that if in the future, if you want to regenerate the South Asian spirit of cooperation, then the Sustainable Development Goals provide us a handy mechanism. In fact, in the post-COVID circumstances, in the post-pandemic circumstances, this is possibly the most usable, serviceable, the principles on which we can rebuild our relationship, whether it is about vaccination, accessing vaccines, whether it is accessing health support, whether it is medicines and everything else, apart from other emergency help and building on trade investment and other issues over here. My last point, the third point which you wanted to talk about, Indo-Bangla relationship. And I wanted to start off by saying that all of you, and I sometimes as well, go on telling we have a shared history, culture, etc., etc. We quite often really, I think romanticize the past. And we always quite often, try to create a mythical shared values and other things over their culture and etc. I'm not quite sure that for South Asia, past is an asset. It may become baggage. I think the asset is our shared future. future is where we should really focus on. Because in this globalized and world, if we look at the geopolitics, and if you look at the bilateral relationship, everything else will unpack itself. If you look at how the technology is coming up, how the technological solutions are breaking barriers, which was unthinkable till the other day, as we speak on this virtual world at this moment with all of you over here, and it is creating a totally new world, which was not perceived by our forefathers in many ways over there. This is where the paradigmatic change has to come, with the fourth industrial revolution, haunting us out there in our perspectives over there. So my point is that then who is going to take this leadership, and who is going to do all these things? So if in my internal piece, which I am talking about, an internal respect to human rights and other issues. So it is not only that we need to look at more respectfully towards our indigenous communities, Dalits, not only to our religious minorities in our respective countries, not only stop violence against women over there, but I would also add that we need to more carefully or respectfully, caringly look at our youth community. At this moment, if you look at the countries, the educated youth, that new emerging middle class, is possibly one of the most neglected sector. It is not the elites of the country. It is not the poorest of the poor who are under your social safety nets and looked after by different yojanas and other things over there. It is the emerging middle class. It is the educated young people who are really feeling frustrated and feeling despondent, and mental stress is very high, and unemployment rate is much more higher among them than from a general average youth unemployment, which means the more you get educated, the higher is the propensity or the possibility of remaining unemployed or underemployed in certain ways. So my whole, aspiration is to look at this new young community, a youth who are much more smarter than us. They are much more globalized than us, much more outward looking than us. They were possibly more human and more has shared values, would be the future leader and would come and build this new South Asia and the new world over there. That is where I would like to end. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Right. I really like this last point
Of the youth.
Go ahead.
Because, so I think we've actually not been able to, I don't think we'll be able to question you on anything, because what your grandmother said is like wisdom all enrolled into one, and you almost answered all our questions. And I totally resonate with what you're saying about looking inwards, about shared history, and then at the same time, peace and tolerance internally, and the youth. So we have a young Rachna who should actually take over now, because I agree with you. I don't know about your country, but India saw the youth supporting the entire, coming forward during COVID, and actually, turning into messiahs, to save all of us who were stuck with COVID at home with nothing to support us with. But having said that, you have been cynical about Sark and the collapsing relationship. How do you think, you keep talking about external forces coming in, how do you think we can rebuild that and bring Sark back into what it was supposed to be?
Ms. Khanna, thank you. I didn't thank you enough for the generous introduction you gave me. I was not being able to recognize myself, in fact, when you were telling that. But anyway, thank you. I also did not respond to your Indo-Bangla relationship. I may come to that if there is time. I have to run to something else as well. But on the Sark resurrection, I'm not quite sure that Sark as a structure is as it was conceived in Bangladesh, in fact, is serviceable in the future under the new circumstances. It is not only about Indo-Bangla relationship. How we are going to deal with the youngest member of Sark, the Afghanistan, in the future, and which Afghanistan to be invited into it is quite unsure we are about that, you see. And when Sark was conceived, and initially, in fact, it was conceived from Myanmar to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was not brought in at that time because of their domestic politics. Then it was, as you know, it was brought in, but then Myanmar was never in. And I just wonder if Myanmar was within SARC, would it have behaved as they have behaved? That's another issue. So one of the, when I look at the SARC charter, and I have written on that separately, that one of the issue which we thought is good for SARC is to avoid bilateral relationship issues. So, and we cannot convene a meeting if not all the head of the states have agreed to that. So those kind of absolute unanimity, is it helpful or not? I don't know. You know, if you look, if you all go on referring to European Union, look at European Union, there is no absolute unanimity with Poland and Hungary now, how they are behaving, as we all know. And so whether that is one principle one would look into. If you look into the African Union over there, just they have taken the decision on Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, you will see the issue of that kind of issues are being dealt with. Not that we are not the first one in the world to deal with this kind of things. So the second issue, which has never been, other than unanimity, absolute unanimity, is the issue of bilateral relationship was considered to be out of the agenda. But why won't the country's leaders take advantage of their face-to-face meetings and have tea on the veranda, on the sidelines? So, you know, I have done my stint accidentally in the diplomatic service. And I can tell you, many things happens not in the room. It is on the elsewhere, in the veranda or in the corridor. And, or if over your, you know, in the evening receptions and everywhere else. That is where usually you cook your policies. I'm pretty sure Mr. Kamaludeen in his own way has done it. And so why didn't we put in those kind of sideline discussions as it goes? And this is a normal practice in G20 and elsewhere, and in United Nations. So I think SARC needs some structural restructuring before it gets to at all revived and up to the speed.
So who would do that? I mean, who would you sort of, how do we encourage or approach or push?
Ms. Sharma, have you given this question to South Bloc?
Not yet.
In your country, your foreign ministry?
Not yet. I would love to do that.
Instead of giving this question to me, I think you should take it to your South Bloc mandarins. They would have a better answer than myself.
Right. I'll do that.
Yeah. So now, since you have to write somewhere,
I mean, there's no point that you start something and because there's one door closed, you don't open the other one. The idea is to keep knocking the doors. I'm sure somebody will open the door.
I am very much with you. I am very much with you. I'm just telling where the key lies to the door.
No, you are definitely with us. That's why you have come on a platform. We are grateful for that. And there's so many things that I'm even taking notes of everything that you're mentioning, because there are so many things that we don't know, like, you know, just as little as just peace to this thing that we've always, when you spoke about the neglected middle class, you know, people who are young and, you know, possibly overeducated, they don't find employment. I've seen that myself. I've seen like really good people out sitting at home, you know, really trying to see what should they do next, because that's why we have so much brain drain in the country, because all of them then have to look for opportunities.
Ms. Sharma, before I run away, I wanted to address your Indo-Bangla relationship issue, if you allow me a couple of seconds on that.
Yeah.
See, Indo-Bangladesh relationship is undergoing, I think, a metamorphosis, in the sense that I would say that new situation in the relationship is emerging. The most significant three achievements of Indo-Bangla relationship in our 50 years of independence, if you leave aside the historic support which we received from India during the Liberation War, and where more than 12,000 Indian soldiers gave their lives, and India really gave refuge to 1 million refugees, including myself. So apart from that, what we have seen it has undergone ups and downs depending upon the regimes which had been in Delhi and Dhaka. But there had been at least 3 major significant achievements in our relationship. The first, I think so, is the Ganges Water Treaty. Ganges Water Treaty had been in 1990s, the second half of the 90s, we achieved that one. Number two is the land boundary treaty, where all these, chitmahals which was landlocked points which have been exchanged and they're redrawn with India. It is a great success of the post-2000. And the third, we also have made significant progress in not allowing each other's soils for insurgencies directed to other countries on peace and security. I think I would single out these three major achievements in Indo-Bangla relationship in the last 20 years in that way: water treaty, land boundary treaty, and consensus on anti-terrorism activity directed to other countries. So if you see the current relationship as it is there, there is an outstanding agenda which we need to address. It is in the mind of the Bangladeshis. There is a huge, strong perception that what Bangladesh has done for India, India has not adequately reciprocated to its country. So it concerns that how we have uprooted all the Indian source insurgencies from our country. It has not been reciprocated adequately by other issues in the bilateral relationship. First and foremost is the Tista Water Treaty. So we are not getting enough water through Tista, and a bilateral resolution of that problem is not there. We know that how the water issue is also an interstate problem in India, but nonetheless, we have been told that the center wants it, West Bengal Didi doesn't want it. So we have gone through this ping pong quite a lot. But the Tista Water Treaty is one of the critical things which has to be resolved. The second issue on the mind of the Bangladeshis vis-a-vis India is the issue of border killing. We all know during the nights there had been smugglers going around on this and the other side, particularly cattle traders and etc. But that does not necessarily mean we will have to use disproportionate, means over here. You don't need to. We all use taser guns and other things nowadays, smoke bombs, sound grenades. Why do you have to fire real bullets, live bullets in that way? So joint security, joint patrolling and other things are very much on the line. Indian sides also people die on this kind of things. But there we have opened border huts 5 kilometers on both sides to do trade and commerce. But still the border killing is a very, very emotional issue in Bangladesh on that. So there are outstanding issues. But there are new issues which are coming up. The new issue is that Indo-Bangla relationship is being reshaped, although Sark is not there, but we have BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Nepal, or BIN, Bangladesh, Nepal, and India, because Nepal, Bhutan somehow opted out from the regional automobile agreement for sustainability issues, pollution issues. So the future of Bangladesh and India relationship lies in creating a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. And that will include both connectivity, trade, investment, and not only trade in goods, but also trade in services. It should include macroeconomic policy, financial deregulation, digital framework for that, logistics, and many other things. That is the future. That is the future we should be looking into. And these two countries may become the gateway to the new South Asia, which we are imagining. So as I say, these are all things in making, and possibly I would love to enjoy my pension benefits and leave it to the young communities to do those unfinished work. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. You've actually summed up everything. I only want to part by asking you to give advice to Furo on what they should do as peace messengers.
You are doing what you are doing. You are doing the dialogue, which is very important. And I come from a center which is called Center for Policy Dialogue. To end with a historical, anecdote on that. The founder of our center, Professor Rehman Soban, a iconic figure in Bangladesh and a doyen on the profession and many other things. So he was in Cambridge, and his classmates were Manmohan Singh and Amartya Sen. In fact, Amartya Sen and myself, we went to the same school in Dhaka when Amartya Sen was here. So St. Gregory's High School in Dhaka. So Amartya Sen in his biography, I think it is in Argumentative Indians, he wrote that, my friend, the Bengalis love adda, that is, public reasoning or debating, or it's not benign gossiping.
We know about it in Delhi as well.
So they have set up a full center to do an adda or discussion or dialogue. It is called Center for Policy Dialogue. Amartya Sen has it about our center in his biography, Argumentative Indian. So, Furo is taking forward that tradition of public reasoning with evidence and transparency and participation and inclusivity. I welcome you. I congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks
a lot.
Thank you. And what would be the advice that if you had to give an advice to the world leaders and to the leaders of Sark?
Pardon? What advice?
Advice, yes.
No. I think that will be presumptuous on my part to give advice on that. I only can say what we expect. We expect, as I said, you have to be respectful to your own citizens, to be respectful to others. So you have to be more pluralistic, more tolerant to alternative views. If it has to be a relationship of trust, and it has to be a relationship of mutual respect, and mutual respect means that your agenda is no less important than my agenda. If you think your agenda is more important than my agenda, then we are not having a common basis for going forward at this moment. So I think that is the point. And don't use that external. We should all understand that politicians quite use their external relationship for domestic consumption. So we should be able to find out what is for domestic consumption, will it create indigestion or not? So that would will have to be throughout. And that's our role as a civil society and as the those who are involved in civic activism, public reasoning, including the private sector, to point out that every other time. I can only say what we should be doing. I cannot much say about what they should be doing, but they should learn from us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a very polite way of giving us a lot of work to do. You've already given me like a couple of things to do here, and I've taken notes. So these are the things to do in next quarter. But I assure you that I will try my best to at least execute most of them, and then see if we can come back to with some results. Say, okay, this is what happened. How do we take this forward? Please always be, as supportive as you are to us today, so we can take this forward. And just to let everyone know that there are a little bit of humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. And the gentleman who was supposed to join us, apparently, maybe because he speaks about Taliban openly and is given certain, just few interviews, that his family has been missing. I think, since yesterday he was not able to connect with them. And right now, he's absconding. We can't get through to him. So which means that there are some crises. Probably he's really lost complete touch with everyone back home. So that's what is happening. In fact, I came across one of the, I don't know how many, whoever is here online listening to us, please, this is just a appeal as a human being that I came across this. Sky News had posted an article which said that families are now selling kidneys, and they're selling their children because kids are dying of starvation. So it's not that people are not doing anything about it. I think a lot of countries have already sent a lot of help, but I feel that this is a time when we all should come together a little more and really pay attention to what's happening there in Afghanistan. And people are really needy. We need to help in whichever capacity we can as human beings to begin with, and then keeping our political agendas aside. So we'll move on to Anshu, because Anshu, I had certain questions for you as well, which I wanted to discuss. And I'll request that if Mr. Bhattacharya has time for another 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, we could say back.
I'm managing. Please carry on. Let me listen.
So I wanted, Anshu to share with everyone, because Anshu is a very well-known, figure in India, in New Delhi. People really look up to her. And since she has no political background and she's also not done much in social impact, she's more of a cultural revivalist. She's to do with heritage and culture. So many people wanted to know why she believes in political peace and why she has been lending us her hand and her voice. So over to you, Anshu. I would like you to share your thoughts with our participants today and also people who will listen to you later on.
Listen, I'm very humbled that you've asked me in front of two such stalwarts to talk about my little vision about political peace. Well, I am a student of political science, but that's where I left it. For the last 30 years, I've been working on reviving what is linking craft with women development. So I've actually created a forum called Royal Fables, where we actually get women of royal lineage who are working with local craftswomen and using that as a forum for developing them economically, making them stand on their feet. And I'm also working very actively with groups now in Jammu and Kashmir, because globally everybody knows that to empower women in violent areas, the only forum you can use is through craft, because they don't have to leave the house. They can do things with their hand, look after their kids. So I've been working on this for a long time. So in a way, for me, political peace as a mother, as a woman, as an entrepreneur is all about being able to give a chance for women to move freely, to not lose their families. And everybody talks about men dying, but the impact it has on families and on women and how it leaves them devastated is something I get very interested in. And of course, political peace is important because it links itself to economic peace and to development, and then flourishing of families. So that is the reason why I always join Rachna in whatever she does. And I enjoy conversations like today, especially Dr. Bhattacharya, and also Mr. Kamaludeen, because we all have to first look at our neighborhood, and I think looking inwards was a very, very important point that he raised, which is extremely essential. And I think all of us need to introspect now on where we as nations are going wrong.
Right. And what would be your advice to us? I mean, though we always have you available for advice, but today is very special. We are marking our second event in 3 months, which has been a progress besides other work that we do at the background. And what would be your advice to world leaders today?
Well, two things. Like Mr. Kamaludeen said, nobody is an island, and we are not an island, so we shouldn't be an island by ourselves. We should open our hearts to the world. We should actually support our neighbors in a more magnanimous and open way. And like Dr. Bhattacharya said, let's all have addas, because only when you talk to each other that you are able to resolve things. And that's it.
Then in that case, if we get through Mr. Zhao, we'll possibly bring him back next quarter. It's 2 months from now. We'll have another event and we'll get someone more from. We'll then close the conversation for today.
Thank you. Absolutely a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you everyone who participated. Please, it is a collective effort. And the more you participate and listen to all our panelists and what they have to say from all these regions, it's not only an opportunity for us to know these countries beyond what we just know, but also get really involved in what really is stopping us from having a dialogue for peace, what really is stopping us from being the next powerhouse as Sark as a region. So would request everyone to please keep participating and also keep talking about Phuro Innovations to everyone. And we are open for feedback. Please write to us at india@phuroinnovations.com and we will get back to you. For more information on Phuro, you could reach out to phuroinnovations.com, which is our website, which gives you all information on not only on latest information about the region, but also information on various other current affairs which are a threat to global peace, which are a threat to South Asian peace, and a threat to internal peace in our own countries. With that, have a good day, and thank you. again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kamaludeen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Kamaludeen. Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. Thank you, Anshu. Jalsu, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jalsu.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.